Hello and welcome to our webinar on tackling data protection concerns in the realm of evolving healthcare sector in India. On behalf of Hammurabi and Solomon Partners, I would like to extend a warm welcome to each one of you. I am Raghav Sajdev, Associate at Hammurabi and Solomon Partners. Today, I am your moderator along with our distinguished speakers, including Mr. Sujeet Katiyar, Mr. Vikram Koppikar, Mr. Rahul Jain, and Mr. Shubham Tripathi, whom I would be introducing in detail very shortly. Before we proceed with the session, kindly allow me a few minutes to introduce our firm, Hammurabi and Solomon Partners. Our firm, Hammurabi and Solomon Partners, is a leading full-service law firm established in 2001 and is ranked amongst the top 10 law firms in India. Over the years, our firm has built a reputation for providing comprehensive legal services across a wide spectrum of practice areas. Our core areas of expertise include corporate advisory, mergers and acquisitions, data protection, compliance, litigation, arbitration, insolvency and bankruptcy, public policy, and real estate. We take pride in our team of over 100 professionals, including 18 experienced partners who bring diverse legal expertise to the table. Our team operates across multiple regions in India, including Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Jharkhand, Ahmedabad, Chennai, and Hyderabad, offering tailored solutions to meet the unique needs of our clients with a commitment to excellence and a focus on client success. Our firm strives to be at the forefront of legal innovation and provide high quality legal counsel and representation in complex legal matters. With this, let me introduce the speakers for today. We have Mr. Sujeet Katiyar. Mr. Katiyar is the co-founder and director at 14th Degree Azimuth Advisory, a specialized consulting and advisory firm focused on regulatory compliance, data privacy, and digital transformation for healthcare, pharmaceutical, and digital healthcare companies in India. With over 27 years of experience at the intersection of law, technology, and healthcare, he also leads digital healthcare compliance initiatives at Suris Solus Ventures Private Limited and serves as a technology consultant at Circle One Studio, where he advises on strategic digital innovation and governance. Then we have Mr. Vikram Koppikar. Mr. Koppikar is a cybersecurity and data privacy professional who makes regular contributions in the field of cybersecurity awareness and has previously handled privacy compliance at Kenvue, Johnson & Johnson Consumer Health, and Tata Consultancy Services. We also have Mr. Rahul Jain. Mr. Jain is a partner in the general corporate, data protection, and TMT practice at Hammurabi and Solomon Partners and has more than 2 decades of experience, having previously worked with organizations such as Reliance, Walmart, Quest Corp, Samsung, and Havells. Lastly, we have Mr. Shubham Tripathi. Mr. Tripathi is a senior associate in the general corporate and data protection practice at Hammurabi and Solomon Partners and regularly advises clients on compliance with the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation and the newly enacted Digital Personal Data Protection Act. Let us now delve into the webinar agenda. We are all aware that the DPDP Act is India's first comprehensive national legislation on data protection. The legislation is supposed to dramatically reshape how businesses handle personal data. So the agenda for this webinar is to explore the key aspects of this act and what it means for the ever-evolving healthcare sector in our country. The session is primarily going to revolve around the methods of the systems which can be implemented by healthcare companies to achieve privacy by design. For the audiences watching this webinar, if you have any questions, please put your questions along with your email in the chat box provided on YouTube, and you shall be receiving answers through email shortly. That being said, let's start with our discussion. As we all know, GDPR and the DPDP Act share a number of similarities, such as granting individuals the right to access, erase, and object to the processing of their personal data, obligating organizations to implement appropriate security measures and report data breaches. So my first question is to Mr. Shubham Tripathi. Mr. Tripathi, how can India ensure global interoperability of its data protection standards for medical devices?
Thank you, Raghav. Thank you for the lovely introduction. It is rather a privilege to be among the company that I am for this panel. Uh, and now, coming to the question that Raghav had asked, as to how can we ensure India's global interoperability of data protection standards for medical devices? So we have to understand the very basics first, that medical devices can be something as simple as a wearable glucose monitor to something as complex as a sophisticated imaging system using MRI and other imaging tools as well. These are increasingly very well connected and data driven, and the ability to exchange patient information securely across borders is now a very vital tool for research collaborations, regulatory approvals, and ultimately for delivering the best possible care. The very first thing that India needs to do is we need to pursue deliberate harmonization with the established global frameworks. We can look at the EU GDPR, and we can also look at the HIPAA, HIPAA, which is prevalent in USA with respect to this approach. This approach fosters trust among non-Indian stakeholders as well, and it also streamlines regulatory reviews when devices are exported or co-developed internationally. Complementing these principles, India should adopt cross-border data transfer rules that mirror the EU's adequacy mechanisms and the stringency of HIPAA. By setting clear the benchmark for data safe countries and region, which ideally should start with EU and other jurisdiction, we can actually establish reciprocal recognition that enables doctors, researchers, and manufacturers to move data fluidly without any legal friction whatsoever. We should also strengthen the technical safeguard that underpin inoperability. The HIPAA, like I was talking about, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, which is an act in US, which offers real-time and very old guardrails which have protected so many customers in the past. There need to be stringent access controls and robust audit trails for medical data. By incorporating this requirement into something like the Ayushman Bharat scheme, we can make a baseline that the global partners of India will instantly recognize. To ensure this, we can mandate ISO 13485. This is basically quality management system certification, and this requirement can be made non-negotiable with respect to medical devices. ISO 13485 focuses on quality management systems to provide the procedural backbone for consistent device design, development, and post-market surveillance. Qualities that US and EU regulators they already demand. Now, I would want you to imagine an India-US consortium which is studying something like pediatric cancer outcomes through federated learning powered. Indian hospitals can contribute encrypted, de-identified data sets, while US research centers can run joint analytics, all without raw data ever leaving the home server. This will not only prevent patient confidentiality, but it will also accelerate the research by removing the bureaucratic red tapeism that is generally tied to such agreements where governments are involved. Therefore, the part to global interoperability of data protection standards for medical devices, they run on two parallel tracks. One is harmonizing our laws and technical requirement with the world's most stringent regimes. The rule of thumb that I believe one should go by with respect to data protection is one should pick up a jurisdiction that has the most stringent requirement, make yourself compliant with them, and almost everything else will be taken care of. So that is what I believe. And I believe that the answer is to weave GDPR's data style, GDPR's principles with HIPAA's mandates, ISO's quality system, and IMRDF's risk qualification in the regulatory fabric. This will ensure that there is a wholesome approach with respect to data protection. Over to you, Raghav.
Thank you for highlighting how India can harmonize data protection standards for medical devices with international benchmarks such as HIPAA, GDPR, and ISO standards to facilitate interoperability, Mr. Tripathi. An underlying principle in this discourse is effective data prescription, as you had mentioned. Since laboratories are key custodians of sensitive patient information, my next question is to Mr. Vikram Koppikar. Mr. Koppikar, how can laboratories ensure that patient data is properly encrypted to effectively mitigate the risk of unauthorized access and data breaches?
Sure. Thank you, Raghav, for this question, and hello to everyone, and thank you to HNS for this, this pertinent and topic of discussion. I think this is a key factor of compliance vis-a-vis DPDPA. In relation to your specific query about laboratories and encryption of information, so as you have mentioned, laboratories are not just collectors of sensitive information, but the information potentially can be used to create a profile of that patient, and there is sort of an added risk if this information gets misused, because whoever has illegally accessed this information or has misused this information can tomorrow create a profile and therefore misuse it potentially. So how do we tackle this issue? My understanding is that, my belief is that primarily there should be data encryption of the patient sensitive data. Now, when I say encryption, this is in both ways. This is encryption of the data at rest while it is in the servers and while it is in transit, right? So that means even if a breach hypothetically were to occur, the data being encrypted while it is at rest or within the organization, the laboratory servers, it still cannot be then misused or accessed, right? So there are protocols such as TS and SSL, which can be used for encryption of data while it is being transferred. There is technology like public key cryptography, which is basically allows encryption of data. There is two levels of security that can be worked upon here, which is the fact that the data can then be signed privately by the physician who's sending it, but when it is transmitted, a public key which is shared between both the parties, the recipient and the transmitter, can be utilized. So use of these technologies can further secure it. But on a more ground level also, these are very specific technical terms, but ground level is that there needs to be things like role based access, right? You have to segregate and you have to necessarily narrow down the teams who within the organization, within the lab, who have access to sensitive data, and the contact details of those individuals and all need to be kept on hand. I speak from experience when I have previously dealt with data breach which has occurred, and one of the biggest challenges at that time is getting hold of all the individuals who may have wrongfully or otherwise had access to that information. So at that time, in order to comply with authority demands, you are running out to each of these individuals, trying to get their undertakings, trying to so the narrower the team is that is in receipt of that data, the role based access control here, it becomes very important, because like time starts ticking, and then you want to meet the authority requirements. We do not as of now know how much the time will be, whether it is like a 6 hour, or whether it will be longer in accordance with like GDPR. We don't know that, so role based access becomes very critical. Lastly, things like audit trails, which are systematic audits. So every time, let us say, the lab institutes like a new method or new kind of collection, then we do a privacy impact assessment to see what are the how where the data is being shared and what's the nature of the information. So regular the privacy team has to carry out PIAs in this regard. And lastly, of course, always is continuous training. So the more the organization is aware, the better they are sensitive or alert to what can be taken misuse. So those are my submissions in relation to this question. Thank you.
Can I add one point here? Okay, so that is in regards with the breach response plan. Okay, so that he was talking about in the third point. So many times, based on my experience, what I have seen, in the organization, most of the persons they are working on the same thing. So until unless the responsibilities are not defined, okay, so it's very difficult. Like, oh, who will be doing what? Okay, so many times like, okay, you need to inform maybe in case of DPDP, the protection board, to the cert in. Okay, and what needs to be done in case of informing the other stakeholders there. Okay, so until unless the roles are not defined, it's many times a bit challenging on any given bad day. So that's my point there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katiyar and Mr. Koppikar, for emphasizing how robust encryption through TS and SSL protocols, public key cryptography, and continuous learning can help in safeguarding patient data within laboratories. As the volume and sensitivity of encrypted data grows exponentially with the digital transformation of healthcare, it raises a crucial question which the next speaker shall address. Mr. Katiyar, is the Central Drug Standard Control Organization as India's primary regular authority for pharmaceuticals and medical devices adequately equipped to oversee this evolving landscape? Or should the Central Drug Standard Control Organization establish a dedicated cybersecurity or digital health division?
Yeah. First of all, it's this CDSCO, the Central Drugs Standard Control Organization. I'll say it's evolving. They are doing quite a few good things, and but yeah, there is dire need of dedicated cybersecurity and digital healthcare division. First of all, this CDSCO is like equivalent of what is US FDA, because US FDA is more popular globally. So they are doing similar kind of job. It's India's national regulatory authority under the Ministry of Health and Welfare, responsible for regulating the quality, safety, and efficiency of drugs, medical devices, and cosmetics. Okay, and it's playing a crucial role in approving new drugs, conducting clinical trials, and so on and so forth. There are quite a few things there. Okay, so why there is need of having some cybersecurity or digital healthcare division? So there are quite a few reasons. I'll try to highlight few here. First of all, there is a growing use of software as a medical device. Okay, so this software as a medical device is basically a software which is intended to be used for a medical purpose without being part of the medical device. Okay, so this software as a medical device and this artificial intelligence, ML-based tools, which are very popular these days. Okay, so these require continuous regulatory oversight. Okay, so which won't be possible through the traditional clinical safety options, which is a common thing which CDSCO is doing. Okay, and the next thing can be the cybersecurity risk and the patient safety. Medical devices and health platforms are they are vulnerable to the hacking, to the ransomware. Okay, so there are so many things are happening in last year or two in India. Many well-known hospitals, whether it's private or government, okay, so they have been targeted. So that's how this patient safety is at risk, and this kind of setup can help there. Also, there is a lacking alignment with the global regulations, like US FDA, European Union, and the Singapore. They are having similar kind of setup there. Okay, they have dedicated digital healthcare units there. And so that's how, if we are not creating, we are lagging behind there. Of course, government under this NHA, National Health Authority, working through ABDM on the various things there. Okay, so a specialized division can ensure the security, the integration of certified digital tools. Okay, so other things with the national health reforms, which government is doing right now. Okay, and because this all the AI ML it's evolving very fast. Okay, so to keep track there and keep real world performance monitoring, it can be very helpful there. And there are various agencies here in India, like just now I mentioned the CERT-in, which is India's Computer Emergency Response Team. Okay, so who is watchdog for the cybersecurity things? So if we are having this kind of setup, then it can help in better aligning with the aligning CDSCO, with the METI, with the NHA, with the CERT in, and the various aspects like standards, certification, breach protocols, also real-time threat intelligence. Okay, so these kind of things like, okay, take example of certification and compliance and the guideline development. So if we are having such kind of setup under CDSCO, it can be a great help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katiyar, for emphasizing how a dedicated cybersecurity or digital health division is required in light of the use of software as a medical device and AI ML based tools. Now, Mr. Katiyar's take on the establishment of a dedicated cybersecurity or digital health division within the CDSCO underscores the growing recognition of digital risks in healthcare. Such a division would undoubt Such a division would undoubtedly set crucial standards and provide regulatory oversight for the entire medical ecosystem. However, the true strength of India's data protection framework hinges on the ability of every entity, especially small and medium diagnostic centers, to implement these standards. So, my next question is to Mr. Rahul Jain. Mr. Jain, how can small and medium diagnostic centers in India build affordable, scalable privacy infrastructure to comply with the DPDP Act?
Thanks, Raghav, and thanks, Hammurabi and Solomon partners, to allow me to be there with the esteemed panel of speakers. So, Raghav, before talking about the small and medium diagnostic centers, we should talk about the diagnostic centers and these labs, which are basically a sort of, instrumental in the patient care, because that is the point from where the data of the patient, which is primarily a data subjects or data principle under the Indian law, are being collected. So the question over here is that this is the baseline where the data is being input in the ecosystem, wherein how the data is being put in the infrastructure could be a privacy by design infrastructure, wherein from the beginning how the data has been collected or stored in the system has to be identified as per the data DPDP principles. Now coming on the uh, so see data is an oil, as everybody knows now, and you know considering the collection of data in the so earlier I recall that whenever you go to these diagnostic labs, you give your data in a physical form. Now even the collection of data in the physical form has become rare, and everything, like we have these online Lal Path Lab or 1mg and other Apollo 24/7 are there, wherein you just put a click of a button and you share your request, and then for the collection these people come and they take their data of yours in terms of samples, and you get the report online. So diagnostic labs, the entire setup got changed, wherein everything has become online now. Considering that if the data has been collected offline, the transfer of the data from offline to online will be very, very problematic and also not cost effective. So therefore, we are talking about the affordable and scalable privacy infrastructure, because ultimately under DPDP Act, whatever is there in the form of a digital data, the compliance has to be taken care of with respect to that and not with respect to physical data. But of course, in order to scale, in order to provide services in a speedier manner, everything is being now done in a digital form. And therefore, this kind of structure, say, if we talk about, as Mr. Katiyar has already told, uh, cloud-based security as service. So, of course, these things are already there in place, because whenever you are using these apps, So they have the a portal wherein the data, whenever you insert data in the app, it is being stored in the structure, cloud-based security as service, and a platform structure wherein the diagnostic center can maintain the entire data in a most cost effective manner. And together with that, there are certain systems which have been given by the government of India, and it is also available on government e-marketplace, like laboratory information management systems are available. Because see, here we are not talking about the big players who are cost rich, and who are having money to shell on such structures. Here we are talking about even a small tier 2, tier 3 city startups who are trying to come into this particular domain and trying to open up their diagnostic labs. So with the laboratory information management system, which is available at the government e-commerce e-marketplace, which ensures that the security standards which are being mandated by the government are being already there in the system, needs to be enforced while collecting data. Because financial data and health data both are the most sensitive personal information, which needs to be guardrailed with all sort of protective measures, so that we would be able to keep the data safe. Secondly, if we talk about the small and medium enterprises, a lot of government programs and industry support programs are available, basis which they can ask for those programs and get them themselves registered under those programs, and get things done accordingly. And I think the most important and crucial part with respect to these diagnostic labs, with respect to SME, is the training, effective training, and awareness of the staff. Because staff is the point where sometimes data comes in the physical form, and you need to be aware that they need to understand, they have a safety manual or the operational manual at their diagnostic lab to follow on the procedures at all points of time, and they need to be regularly made aware of those processes, so that they should not go away from their standard protocols to be maintained by the path lab, by the laboratory business owner. That's my take on this part, Raghav.
Thank you, Mr. Jain, for providing a roadmap for small and medium diagnostic centers to build affordable and scalable privacy infrastructure. Now, the same is intrinsically interlinked to the ability of diagnostic centers to manage unforeseen data security incidents. However, even with robust privacy frameworks in place, the reality of data breaches still looms large. So, my next question is to Mr. Shubham Tripathi. Mr. Tripathi, many diagnostic centers lack a structured response plan for data breaches, leading to delayed notifications and mitigation efforts. So, are diagnostic centers ready for data breach emergencies?
Uh, Thank you, Raghav, for the question, and thank you to all the speakers as well. Your answers were very descriptive and very informative. Uh, to answer this question, I would first like to specify that in this age where patient data is the lifeblood of clinical decision making, these centers, they hold vast repositories of personal health information, ranging from basic details to sensitive diagnostic imaging, genetic profiles, and detailed pathology reports. There are even some other non-medical companies like 23andMe, MyHeritage DNA, which have genetic information of people. This information, which is towards digital healthcare, it has a lot of benefits, including faster diagnosis, seamless information being shared, and integration with public health initiative like you see in the United Kingdom. Yet, it also exposes a critical vulnerability, the potential for data breaches that can compromise patient privacy, fuel identity fraud, and even erode public trust in a healthcare institution. Despite it being this serious, many diagnostic centers in our country, they remain ill prepared for the moment when, and it's just a matter of when and not if, it's going to happen when they face a cybersecurity incident. Under a DPDP Act, any breach that affects the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of patient data must be reported to the Data Protection Board. That is something we are aware of. There is a fine also prescribed, but since there is no clarity on rules, so we cannot be certain about that. But beyond regulatory fines, a breach can inflict lasting reputational damage as well. It can cause patient attrition and it can ultimately result in very costly litigation. Yet, in practice, smaller labs and standalone imaging services, they frequently lack a formal incident response plan, resulting in reactive and ad hoc measures that delay containment, remediation, and notification. I would like you to imagine a scenario, sorry, where a phishing email slips past your inbox filters and a lab technician inadvertently clicks a malicious link. Within hours, an attacker gains access to your report server and begins exfiltrating personal data of the patients. In the absence of a structured plans, who isolates the compromised system? Who notifies the data protection officer, the regulator, and the patients? What legal advices do you consult? How do you restore operations while preserving forensic evidence? Without clear roles, fleshed out procedures, and key technology like security information, event management systems, and intrusion, a breach becomes a full blown crisis rather than a contained incident. To break this cycle, every diagnostic center must adopt a comprehensive incident report plan, which I'll refer to IRP, covering six essential phases: preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, and post incident review. In the preparatory stage, centers should establish an information security governance committee that brings together clinical leadership, IT, legal, and executive sponsors as well. This committee should oversee the creation of policies, data inventories, and risk classifications that map out where sensitive data resides, be it on the premises, which can be servers, or cloud platform, or even in physical records. Strong technical controls, including endpoint detection and response, encryption in transit and at rest, and strict access control with multi-factor authentication will form the backbone of preparedness. The identification phase hinges on real-time monitoring. By deploying a lot of tools and aggregate logs, one can identify whether a data breach has happened. Containment will usually almost always follow after identification. In the short term, you can isolate affected hosts, shutting down compromised server or segmenting network zones. And you can even disable any user accounts that have been breached. But for long-term containment, you need to apply critical patches, rotate credentials, and harden the firewall rules to pretend to make sure that the attacker do not attack again. Because sometimes what do they do? These hackers do is they would leave a zero-day exploit or something fancy of that nature that will activate itself on a trigger or after some time has passed. You have to make sure that that thing is taken care of. Now, third step, eradication. It will involve rebuilding or cleansing the affected systems using very trusted backups. It is to ensure that any signs of recurring malicious activity and any critical workflow that may be breached is taken care of. Finally, a thorough post-incident review must take place. All stakeholders, all executive leadership, entire leadership team, even non-executive, IT, clinical directors, legal, communication teams, they all have to gather and they have to analyze the lessons learned. The IRP should be updated to close any procedural gaps, and detailed breach notification should be prepared in any other eventualities. None of these technical safeguards will work without a parallel focus on the human aspect of it all. Studies consistently show that human errors, clicking on physical emails, misdirecting sensitive information, honey trapping, these things are things which actually lead to a data breach. It's most of the times it's these things. To address this, diagnostic centers must implement role-based training programs. Front desk should know how to handle the printed reports. Lab technicians need guidance on cybersecurity of connected equipment if it's so connected with the internet. Managers need to understand policy enforcement and regulatory obligations as well. This was just a tentative list. Everybody should know what they are doing, what data are they handling, how are they acquiring it, how do they protect it, and what's the best way to deal with all of this. And to conclude, I would say that looking ahead, we need to shift our focus from reactive firefighting to proactive resilience. As diagnostic centers embrace paperless operations, security architecture must be integrated at the outset of any digital transformation project. It may cost a bit more, but you'll eventually thank yourself for doing it. Threat intelligence feeds inter-lab information sharing on emerging attack vectors and collaborative exercises with regulators will keep response plans current. I know uh, cooperation is also needed in these things, which sometimes can get difficult, but I would like to propose that as well, where the regulator and the regulated can come together, hold training sessions so that we know how to properly work together. Yes, Raghav, off to you.
Thank you, Mr. Tripathi, for highlighting how the unreadiness of diagnostic centers for data breach emergencies creates a major vulnerability. This vulnerability not only jeopardizes patient privacy but also undermines the trust that underpins healthcare services. A key element in rebuilding and maintaining this trust, even in the face of potential breaches, is the adherence to robust consent mechanisms. So, my next question is to Mr. Vikram Koppikar. Mr. Koppikar, is consent in diagnostics just a mere checkbox exercise? And how can laboratories ensure true compliance with the DPDP Act's consent requirements?
All right. Thank you for the question. And I just have to say some fantastic responses by Rahul and Shubham before me. So very, very relevant. This is on a lighter note, but just a couple of days ago, I happened to see, the new Mission Impossible movie. And, Tom Cruise, as always, has to, like, collect a key which is in the bottom of a submarine, which is in a submarine, which is in the bottom of the ocean. He has to take a key, then go to an underground vault, which is in some equally offbeat and descriptive and challenging place to get to. And so he has to do all kinds of things, and you're just watching him tackle obstacle after obstacle. The reason I quote this is sometimes achieving consent under the DPDP also makes you feel you are doing something which is not impossible, but it's definitely a challenging task. Now, why is this a challenging task? Because the DPDP has, whether rightfully or otherwise, put consent as the primary grounds of processing. There are many amongst the privacy community who will say, concepts like legitimate purpose, which was there in GDPR, could have been better utilized in the DPDPA. But where we stand now, consent is primary. So there are obviously various classic qualifications for consent to be valid under DPDPA, which is that consent has to be explicit. There has to be a notice provided which describes various kind of whatever the purpose of the processing of the information is. There has to be data minimization and so on. So those are basic concepts, so I don't really have to go through them in detail. Now the challenge here is that awareness of one's privacy rights in India again is slightly like a limited, is limited. So until there is like widespread awareness which is done, it becomes difficult to obtain consent from that individual because they themselves don't know what they are giving. So this is just this is a very personal submission, but I do hope, and I am aware that this is probably going to be the case, that before the government or the authorities kick off the act and the rules, and as such there is a preceding campaign which illustrates or which makes people aware of their rights in relation to consent or what consent is. Now, as I use the Hollywood example, I'll use a Indian one, which is, we had this campaign many years ago by Mr. Bachchan, which is that, he used to tell us polio ke teen tike, and then we know that, that it had great success. So that something maybe very grassroots at that level, no? It should be there to let people know what consent is. Once that is in place, then businesses can then help the the user better kind of capture his or her consent. Now in that interim, or that being said, what are the steps that the businesses themselves need to do? They need to design forms. The other challenge is that there are multiple of languages, so kind of count your your geography or your regions, and then the design forms in those languages accordingly, or perhaps use multimedia to educate the subject about what is consent is being taken for. If we visit the IAPP website, there are multimedia examples given of consent forms, so that could be used as reference. Of course, the consent management system has to be, so whether consent is collected digitally or whether it is worst case collected in a manual form, we need to have proof of, to show to the authorities that this is how consent was collected, because if obviously such institutions will be considered as a significant fiduciary, so there might be a request for an audit at a subsequent date. And lastly, as I always say, internally one needs to have a training and an awareness of one staff to ensure that all these consent practices are regularly in place. So it's not that that's this annual kind of a nudge saying that we might be audited, so just wake up and start taking action, but it has to be a continuous process, because that's how that credo is built throughout the organization. So that's really my answer to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Koppikar, for mapping out how laboratories can ensure genuine compliance with the DPDP Act through consent forms, multimedia, and internal training. The principle of informed consent is especially vital in the rapidly evolving landscape of remote healthcare. With the advent of digital consultations accelerated by the telemedicine practice guidelines, a clear understanding of how such guidelines harmonize with the DPDP Act have become necessary. So my next question is to Mr. Sujeet Katiyar. Mr. Katiyar, how do the telemedicine practice guidelines align with the Digital Personal Data Protection Act to address consent, storage, and sharing of patient data during remote consultations?
Thank you. Very good discussion so far, and thanks for asking question, which is of my interesting area, the telemedicine and telemedicine practice guidelines, because I have been in this area since long. So some background about telemedicine practice guidelines. These were issued in 2020 under these were guidelines, but these were a kind of law. It was under IMC regulations 2002 that time. So this IMC regulation defines the professional conduct, etiquettes, and ethics. Okay, so though recent update in IMC regulation 2022 incorporates several provisions related to telemedicine, but previously it was not there. So coming to the telemedicine practice guidelines, so it was kind of a gray area, because in law we are having three zones. One is which is allowed by law, that's a white area, something black, which is not allowed. But in many cases, gray area is really big. So this remote consultation or telemedicine or teleconsultation, whatever you call it, it was kind of a gray area at that point of time, and there was a very dire need of how things should go. Way back in 2009, even I started something related to this telemedicine. All the big like Practo and others, they started around same time, but that was a gray area, because there was nothing clear. In fact, this IMC code of ethics that also requires that the diagnosis and the prescription be made after direct examination, proper examination, and without examination could be interpreted as a negligence or misconduct as per this thing. So, but yeah, since it was a gray area, things were going on. And then in 2018, this Maharashtra High Court, there was one case related to some anticipatory bail against couple of one Dr. Kapil they were gynec, I think, and so they prescribed some medicines on phone. Okay, they were out. There was some patient, and so based on the feedback given by the assistant doctors or nurses, some prescription was given, and unfortunately, that patient died. Okay, so then of course there was case under 304, and they approached High Court for anticipatory bail, and court held that the prescribing medicine without adequate diagnosis amount to criminal negligence. And that's how from 2018 to 2020, that was a bad period from the telemedicine point of view, because in absence of law, any judgment pronounced by higher court, that become law. So it was kind of law, but thanks to COVID, okay, so immediately, I think in the month of March, around this telemedicine practice guidelines were introduced. Okay, so now coming to your question related to how this telemedicine guidelines and DPDP Act. So telemedicine guidelines, that document was not very descriptive. Okay, it was just validating the telemedicine in India, that this is a legal thing which can be done by the RMP. They have defined the RMP and other things, what all can be done during the first prescription and follow up, whatnot. But as far as the major part, I think you asked about the consent part. As far as the consent is concerned, so in telemedicine practice guideline, there were two things. Like, okay, when patient is initiating the consultation, of course, that requires the patient consent there. By any chance, if caregiver or somebody else is initiating, then explicit consent is required. But in case of DPDP Act, which mandates free, specific, informed, and unambiguous consent. Okay, so it emphasizes on the purpose limitation also. So data must be used only for the purchase consented for. So the alignment with the telemedicine practice guidelines and the DPDP Act, because both require the clear patient consent before collecting the information. So that's a good thing, because certain things were not there. So that's how they are there. Second aspect, I think, related with the data, storage of the data. So as far as the storage of the data is concerned, in telemedicine practice guidelines, no detailed storage protocol was explained or defined. Okay, but it was encouraging to maintain the digital records, okay, of consultation as per the existing law, because healthcare is a state subject. Okay, and in states, like, it varies from 3 years to 5 years to 7 years. Under NHA, they came up with some health data management policy, which talks about 10 years. Okay, so but anyways, it was like in telemedicine practice guidelines, it was just talking about the to maintain the digital records as per the existing law. Coming back to this DPDP Act, it requires health service providers who happens to be data fiduciary in case of DPDP Act. They should ensure data security, storage limitation, lawful retention, everything. So personal data must not be stored beyond the necessary period until unless the sectorial law is not providing something otherwise. So here the alignment part is DPDP provides very strong storage compliance, which is complementing the telemedicine record keeping. What was the third thing related data sharing? I think. Hello.
Data sharing.
Data sharing. Okay. Coming to the data sharing part. Okay. So data sharing point of view, I don't think telemedicine guidelines is having anything is mentioned there. Okay. So in case of DPDP Act, it prohibits sharing of personal data without explicit consent there. And it requires safeguards when data is shared with the either with the processor or with the third parties there. Okay, and again, the role of the data processor here in DPDP Act is going to be very important, though there are not direct obligation there. But of course, since they are working on behalf of data fiduciary, so Of course, not directly, but indirectly, there are liabilities. So the alignment here can be the DPDP is like filling the regulatory gaps which were not there in telemedicine by enforcing very strict data sharing rules there. And of course, where all you can share the data, that government will tell like, okay, in what all countries data can be shared. So that's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katiyar, for highlighting how the telemedicine practice guidelines can be aligned with the DPDP Act through proper consent collecting mechanisms and purpose limitation. Mr. Katiyar's response underscores the paramount importance of secure data handling. While telemedicine focuses on the virtual exchange of health information, laboratories are equally critical custodians of sensitive patient data, often serving as the initial point of data collection and analysis. So, my next question is to Mr. Rahul Jain. Mr. Jain, what measures should laboratories adopt to protect sensitive health data under the DPDP Act?
Yeah, thanks, Raghav. That's a very apt question after Mr. Katiyar's deliberations on the telemedicine. So, see, I'll try to take all the three questions together because laboratories adopt certain practices to protect the data, and of course that practices includes data breaches, and together with that how the data principals rights are being ensured to be protected, because they have their rights in terms of they ask that whether their data is there or not, whether the data is in the updated form or not, or whether they want that their data should be deleted. So all those things go hand in hand. Considering that, if we talk about the measures taken by the laboratories, as already said by Mr. Koppikar, we have certain ways, very mandated ways to take care of the data. Now, in that scenario, of course, we have already talked about how the role-based access has to be given to employees, because if somebody is collecting something, then he should not be given the right to transmit something. So very secured protocols are there with respect to accessing of the data by the path lab employees. And if it is segregated and defined in different people very differently, then there is a chances that the pilferage of data will not happen. So role-based access control are the very effective way of doing protecting the data at various junctures. Secondly, with respect to audits. So we generally have periodic audits in the form of vulnerability assessments, which needs to be conducted in order to identify that where are these sources of pilferage of information or potential risk, so that in these assessments we would be able to stop those points of pilferage. Again, we have also talked about incident response plans and how the potential breaches can be taken care of, which has been very beautifully articulated by Shubham. So I will not going deeper into that part. But again, in terms of the compliance strategies with respect to protecting the laboratory data, we have data protection impact assessments. We need to have the appointment of data protection officers so that these things can be protected. Secondly, with respect to, say, managing data breaches, there's a standard process of doing it. You need to notify the data protection board, and we are at the cusp of this point wherein the rules have been framed, they have been given for suggestions. Suggestion has been given by the stakeholders. Now, ministry will come with these rules, wherein the most important part in the rules will be the timelines identified for various actions. Like when the incident has to be reported to the board, what are the timelines? It could be 6 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. So all those timelines will be identified when the breach happened, and then the thorough investigation needs to be identified in terms of what breaches happened, under what circumstances they have been happened, and what remedial actions post breach you have taken care of. So of course we have a standard breach response plans. Again, I'm reiterating that we have a staff training and regular drills to identify the effective breach response plan needs to be coordinated post the breach happens. And finally, with respect to we talk about the data principles. So these are the patients whose data have been collected. So we need to identify that how their data is being what rights they have. So they generally have the right to access their data. They can ask that what data they have given, because very simple information like mobile number got changed, use transfer to different city. Of course, now we have mobile portability, but then if they want to change their number, they need to access their personal data so that they can get it edited. They have the mechanism to launch complaints, so that if they have any grievance, it has to be addressed, it has to be identified. Probably there could be a issue of impersonation by somebody else. They need to be aware about it. And then of course I realize that these portals, which are also acting like all online diagnostic labs, these needs to be user friendly. There have to be a clear communication whether your lab test has been postponed, or it has been done in a specific manner. Because sometimes what happens, you put a request and they say that they will come for the collection, but the collection is not there. You need to go physically to the site and get the test done physically. And of course the timely response is the major requirement under the DPDP Act, as well as in order to take care of the customer care, you need to respond them in a timely fashion. Thanks, Rahul.
Thank you, Mr. Jain, for explaining how laboratories can lay the groundwork for robust internal data security. However, effective data security extends beyond individual organizational efforts, particularly in the event of a data breach. The Indian healthcare system, with its reliance on medical devices, necessitates a synchronized approach to data breach. So, my next question is to Mr. Shubham Tripathi. Mr. Tripathi, how can the DPDP Act's breach notification requirements be harmonized with the medical device rules and the National Medical Devices Policy?
Hi, Raghav. Thank you again for the question. Uh, so again, I would like to start with a very simple illustration. Let's say you have a critical medical ventilator that is connected to the internet through Internet of Things, and now there's a cybersecurity breach. Patient vitals, treatment histories, identities are all out in the open. Now, under the DPDP Act, the hospital needs to notify the Data Protection Board. Fair enough. But what about medical device regulations? When must they alert the drug regulator? How soon? So there is not much cohesiveness between DPDP Act, MDR, which is the medical device rules, as well as the medical National Medical Devices Policy. So what is the core issue? The core issue here is fragmentation. First, as per the DPDP Act, you have to report data breaches as soon as possible. Now, that's ambiguous. Here's the concern. But as soon as possible and without delay for patients is dangerously vague. Delays risk identity theft, discrimination, or worse, physical harm if a device is compromised. So these things are to be taken care of. Second, we have the medical device rules and policy. They focus on device safety and efficacy, requiring adverse events to be reported to CDSCO, but they are silent on data breaches. Now, what does this result in? It results in complicated and conflicted obligations. A device maker must rush to notify thousands under the DPDP Act, while MDR might only require a slower report to CDSCO. This means duplication, delays, inconsistent messaging, and overall a compliance nightmare. So, what suggestion do I have? I'll very quickly go through the suggestion. Number one, there should be a single window. Create a mandatory digital portal, which is co-run by the DPDP board and CDSCO. So one report led by the DPO satisfies both DPDP and MDR. Standardized field, nature of data breach, the device details, safety risk fixes, one report, one portal, full visibility, easy. Pillar 2, tiered timeline. For it, clarity is king. 72 hours should be the timeline for regulators. Notify the United portal within 72 hours and 14 days for patients. This can be the clear outer limit, but it can be accelerated if lives are at immediate risk. The legislators of India are well equipped to handle this, and this should be better handled by medical professionals, as they know what kind of thing requires uh, quick actions, and that can be integrated. Third, integrating the compliance. Again, amending MDR and national policy to explicitly include DPDP breach rules, and also require the Data Protection Board and CDSU guidance for healthcare, where everybody can clarify roles, report, and assessment, and ensure that the DPOs they work hand in glove with quality assurance teams. One coherent rule book for this sector. And now I'll tell you why this works. Patients win because faster alerts, quicker protection from fraud or physical danger. Number two, industry wins. One report, clear rules, slashing compliance costs and chaos. Number three, India as a country wins. It builds trust in digital health, aligns with global standards like GDPR, and gives regulators a unified view for smarter oversight. Safety, simplicity, and synergy. That's what my proposal is. Over to you, Raghav.
Raghav, you are mute.
I apologize. Thank you everyone for your insightful answers. Now we'll be taking some questions from the chat box. So, my question to Mr. Katiyar is, what are the solutions around phishing attacks where employees are tricked into sharing the login credentials of the patient data? Mr. Katiyar, you're speaking on mute.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So, implementation of regular employees training on phishing awareness and deployment of multi-factor authentication. Yeah, that can be used to prevent unauthorized access of the patient data. Additionally, using of email filtering and threat detection tools that can also block the phishing attempts. That's what from my side.
I would also like to add to what Sujeet ji has just said. Uh, I think that a multi-pronged approach. First, I'll very quickly explain how do I emphasize it, right? First, educate like your life depends on it. Educate, educate, educate. Second, simulate attacks yourself internally. Out of nowhere, one of these days you have an attack and you know where the gaps are. Easier to fill that way. Have ethical hackers to do it for you. Third, I believe multi-factor authorization. Just your password alone should be irrelevant. You can have other modes of authentication like we use in our office as well. And fourth, zero trust policies, no assumption, no blind trust, verify everything. I think if we have these four aspects covered, pretty much most of these incidents can be minimized at least.
Now, as this webinar draws to a close, I would like to extend a vote of thanks to all our distinguished speakers for their valuable insights. And to everyone who joined us today, we've covered a wide range of critical issues, from the implications of the DPDP Act on the healthcare sector to the challenges and the opportunities it presents for data protection, cybersecurity, and compliance. As we move forward, it's clear that while the journey towards robust data privacy and security in healthcare is complex, the DPDP Act provides a solid framework for companies to navigate these challenges. To all the healthcare professionals and businesses in attendance, remember that while compliance with data protection laws can be demanding, it's an essential investment in building trust and ensuring long term success of your business in this increasingly digital world. We hope today's discussion has provided you with valuable takeaways and actionable insights to guide your strategies moving forward. Thank you once again for participating, and we look forward to continuing this important conversation ahead. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.